Welcome to the Deep Dive, the place where we take those, universal, nagging questions about life and use the hardest science we can find to get real, actionable answers. And we've got two today that I know keep pretty much everyone up at night.
Indeed. We're getting to the mechanics of self-sabotage.
Hmm.
Specifically, why do I constantly procrastinate on things I know are important?
Hmm.
And tied right into that, the mechanics of attention. Why does my amazing vacation just fly by, but the 15 minutes before a meeting feels like an eternity?
And we are explicitly not doing the usual self-help cliches here. Our sources give us, really, a neuroscience-based user manual for your brain. We're going to explore three surprising truths that completely flip what you think you know about motivation, time, and happiness.
Right. The mission here is to show you how to stop fighting your brain and actually start working with it. We'll show you not just what works, put on your shoes, start for 1 minute, but why it works, by looking at the actual neural networks running the show.
Okay, let's unpack this. Starting with, I think, the biggest one for most of us, procrastination. The first truth is all about motivation.
Right. And most of us operate under this deeply ingrained myth. It's completely false, but we all believe it. The myth is, I need to feel good or energized or, inspired before I can start something.
Oh, absolutely. We sit there staring at the laptop, just waiting for that lightning bolt of motivation to strike. And when it doesn't, we think, well, I guess I just don't have the discipline.
And that's exactly what neuroscience debunks. It's completely reversed. The secret to motivation isn't waiting for desire. It's that small actions are the ignition switch for desire.
Right.
You don't get motivated, then act.
Yeah.
You act, and the action itself triggers dopamine, which then creates the desire.
Okay, so if the brain is designed to reward action, why does taking that first tiny step feel like pulling a truck through mud? Why is there so much resistance?
That resistance is, well, it's your brain's natural programming. Your brain is all about efficiency.
Yeah.
Its number one job is to conserve energy, to maintain the status quo. So to do anything new, you first have to overcome what we can call the inertia team. These are the neural networks actively keeping you still.
I like that framing, the inertia team.
Mm.
Okay, so who are the players on this resistance squad?
Well, let's start with the one we always try to use.
Yeah.
The prefrontal cortex, the PFC. This is the great strategist. It's the voice saying, you really should work on that report now. But here's the crucial part. The PFC is a great planner, but a very, very weak start button.
Wait a second, so you're saying all that effort, all that willpower and logic from the PFC, it's mostly useless for just getting started?
They're getting started.
Yeah.
Largely, yes. Trying to motivate yourself through the PFC is like trying to start a frozen car engine with a tiny motor. And then you have the emotional and sensory resistance.
There's alarm bells.
Exactly. The amygdala and the insula. The amygdala is the alarm that goes, oh, this might be hard or uncomfortable, and that creates emotional resistance. Then the insula, the sensory part, says, I really can't stand the feeling of boredom or, the physical strain this is going to take. It tags the whole effort as a threat.
So the second I even think about going for a run, those two are just flashing a giant red no sign based on how I might feel later.
And then the real energy saver, the default mode network, or DMN, chimes in. This is the background chatter. It's the network that whispers, later. It's not urgent. And it generates all those distracting thoughts, the worries, the regrets, all the mind wandering that pulls you away from the task.
That's the voice that suddenly makes it feel incredibly important to see what my friend from high school had for lunch, right when I'm supposed to be writing.
Precisely. And finally, the basal ganglia, our habit automation factory. It sort of seals the deal. If you repeatedly choose to delay, the basal ganglia stores doing nothing as the most efficient automatic default behavior. Procrastination becomes a neurological superhighway.
That's actually terrifying, that our brains are literally optimizing for laziness unless we intervene. So how do we bypass this team? If the PFC is weak, what is the real start button?
The real start button is the salience network, or SN. Think of it as the brain's traffic coordinator.
Yeah.
The SN activates when you focus on what's important right now, in this exact moment. Not what's logically important in the future, but what is salient now.
So it's about shifting my attention from the huge future result to just the immediate tiny first step.
Yes. And when the SN activates, it does something crucial. It suppresses the DMN's noise. It quiets those whispers. And it activates the task-positive network. And what's really fascinating is that the insula, which first warned you about discomfort, is a core part of the salience network.
Whoa, that's the paradox then. The very network that registered, I don't like this feeling, becomes the key to focusing on the present moment. It's like you're using the physical reality of the present, the feeling of the keyboard, maybe to overcome the abstract fear of the task.
That is the pivot. And once that happens, that's when the micromotivation kicks in. And we're talking about dopamine, which is released by the nucleus accumbens, the reward center.
So we usually think of dopamine as, the big reward at the finish line, the victory celebration.
But the neck releases a little push of dopamine the moment you start a small action, not when you finish. It's not fireworks. It's a quiet chemical whisper that says, hey, that wasn't so bad. Let's do a little more. That subtle push is what creates momentum.
So the key takeaway is literally the mind follows the body. The goal isn't to tackle the whole job. It's to lower the threshold so much that the inertia team doesn't even have time to protest.
Exactly. You need micro-action strategies. For exercise, don't think about the 45-minute workout. The action is just put on your workout clothes. If you need to write, don't focus on the essay. The action is just sit at your desk for 1 minute. Open the document.
Can you give me a real-world example, like the internal dialogue?
Okay, so if you tell yourself, I need to clean the entire house, the amygdala screams, effort, danger, and the DMN throws up 1,000 distractions. But if you change the commitment to, I will move 1 cup from the coffee table to the sink, the brain sees that tiny energy cost and says, okay, that's safe, that's easy. That one action releases that first bit of dopamine, and often that's all you need for momentum to take over.
And the really beautiful part is how this leads to long-term automation. The basal ganglia, which once automated doing nothing, now starts to store these small, successful actions as new, efficient pathways.
That is the neurological definition of a habit. And once it's a habit, the basal ganglia just handles it. It takes way less effort from your POC. Dopamine gets released during the process itself. Think about brushing your teeth. You don't need motivation for that. It's just a well-paved road in your brain.
A fantastic user manual for motivation. Stop waiting, start tiny.
Which brings us right to our second truth, the elasticity of time. Because if small actions create motivation, does that same mechanism explain why time seems to speed up or slow down?
Right, the puzzle. Why does the first day of vacation feel like a week, but the last 6 months of routine just vanished?
The secret isn't in physics. It's entirely psychological, and it's based on sensory density. Your perception of time depends completely on the amount and quality of sensory information your brain is recording.
So how does the brain record a high-density experience?
When you encounter something new, the new sights, sounds, smells on that trip, your hippocampus, the memory center, judges it as important information. It basically switches into high-speed camera mode and records the experience densely, frame by information-rich frame.
And that's what we feel as being in the moment or in a state of flow.
Exactly. And when you look back on that memory, it feels long because it was so information-rich. That's the time expansion phenomenon. But your routine commute to work, your brain has seen it 1,000 times, so it records it sparsely in normal shooting mode. Very few memorable frames, so the time just whooshes by.
So the main reason routine makes time fly is that our brain is just ignoring the details to save space. And I'm guessing the culprit here is our old friend, the DMN, the mind-wandering network.
It's the DMN theft. When you're stuck in your head worrying about the future, replaying the past, your attention is completely disconnected from the sensory input of the present. Time just becomes background noise. You lose all that density.
Okay, so what are the actionable ways to trick our brains into recording in high-speed mode, even on a normal Tuesday? We need to consciously activate the salience network.
We have to increase sensory density 4 ways. First, scan your senses. When you're walking, consciously notice the sound of a fan, the feeling of the ground, the air temperature. You're actively re-engaging the salience network.
So instead of letting the DMN hijack your walk with worry, you're forcing the SN to focus on what's actually happening.
Second, and this is a big one, reduce digital stimuli. Your smartphone is a DMN superstimulator. It scatters your attention, distorts your sense of time. Just putting your phone down for a few minutes can actually clarify your perception of time. Add small novelty. Novelty is the signal for the hippocampus to start recording densely. Change your route home. Listen to a totally new kind of music. Try a different cafe. Tiny shifts in routine make life more vivid.
And fourth,
listen to internal signals. Focus on your breath, your heartbeat, the tension in your shoulders. This directly activates the insula, that critical sensory hub, and anchors you squarely in the present moment.
so we can literally live a longer, richer life, at least in memory, just by paying more attention to the details.
Precisely. Which brings us to our final truth, the one that ties it all together, the truth about happiness.
This is the someday illusion. We all do it. I'll finally be happy when I get that promotion, or when I finish this project, or when I can finally retire.
And that happiness, when it arrives, almost never sticks around. And here's why. Chemically,
Yeah.
the dopamine mismatch. The dopamine circuit reacts much, much more strongly to the anticipation of a reward than to the reward itself.
That explains so much. It's why planning the vacation is often more exciting than the vacation itself. We're chasing the high of expecting it.
And that causes us to overvalue future happiness. When the moment arrives, the reality rarely matches the inflated expectation, and the good feeling just fades so quickly. Even worse, this kind of future-focused thinking driven by the DMN actually increases anxiety and perfectionism.
So if happiness isn't in those big, distant goals, where do we find it?
The brain's true happiness circuits, which involve the nucleus accumbens and the orbitofrontal cortex, are designed to react immediately and powerfully to small, current sensory stimuli.
Give us some examples of what actually works then.
The feeling of warm sun on your skin, the aroma of your coffee, the simple, clean feeling of finishing one tiny task, like clearing your desk. These are immediate sensory experiences that light up the happiness circuits instantly, and you can have them all day long.
It's the difference between, say, a huge bouquet of flowers that wilts in a day, that's the big goal, and the small, stable wildflowers that keep your emotional system grounded all year.
That stability is critical. And it's not just a feeling. There are powerful biological effects. Pure sensory awareness activating the salience network, it actively lowers hyperactivity in the amygdala, the fear center, and it rapidly stabilizes the HPA axis.
The HPA axis, remind us what that is and why stabilizing it is so important.
The HPA axis is the body's central stress response system. When you're anxious, it floods you with stress hormones like cortisol. By engaging your senses, focusing on the texture of your shirt, the sound of someone's laugh, you're signaling to your brain that there's no immediate threat, and it quickly shuts down that stress response.
So the simple act of just noticing the smell of my coffee is a direct physiological defense against chronic stress.
That is the neurocalming effect. Happiness isn't some abstract future thought. It's found in immediate sensory experiences that reinforce safety and stability right now.
Okay, let's bring these three amazing truths home. The entire deep dive really reveals one simple, unified message.
It does. We've learned that action creates motivation. We've learned that sensation expands time, and that happiness is found in the sensations of the present moment.
And what's the common enemy across procrastination, lost time, and anxiety? And what's the common solution?
The common enemy is the overactivation of the DMN. It's that chronic mind-wandering, regret, and worry. And the common solution for all three is activating the SN, the salience network, through small actions and focusing on current sensory input.
What's really shocking is that studies show we spend, on average, over 80% of our waking hours in DMN-driven mind-wandering mode. And a lot of that is just not productive. It's self-criticism, rehashing old arguments. That's 80% of life lived somewhere other than here and now.
So actively choosing to engage the salience network, to notice the light in the room, to feel your feet on the floor, to take one small step, that is the key. It's the key to a life that's not only less stressed, but also feels longer, richer, and more productive in the present.
So here's the provocative thought we want to leave you with. Since your brain automatically defaults to past regret or future anxiety, your most important choice each day isn't what big goal to chase. It's what small action or what small sensation you will notice right now to change the quality of your entire day. Start there.